Hi, my name is Bruce Bolger, and I'm founder of the Enterprise Engagement Alliance. We're the world's leading organization dedicated to helping companies of all sizes profit from a strategic and systematic approach to people. And as part of that program, we have an ongoing EEA YouTube channel series where we bring together experts in all areas of engagement to share how to and reference videos that people can get on demand. This one happens to be live with a few people joining us, but generally speaking, we record them and we make them available on our EEA YouTube channel, usually by the next day. So today we're really talking about an exciting subject matter, one that I think creates very big opportunities for both businesses and the solution providers that serve them. And we're going to find out from our other panelists whether they agree. And the subject is Total Rewards 2.0, the convergence of benefits and rewards and recognition. And as part of a strategic and systematic approach to engagement, we always look at how we can better align and measure all of our engagement activities for maximum impact. And to help us discuss all of this, we have perspectives from all different aspects of the market. Missy Dunn is Vice President of Client Sales for Abenity Inc. They're one of the nation's largest benefits companies, and we're going to get her perspective on this whole issue. Maggie Drucker, she's Chief Relationship Management Officer for ProsperBridge. They're a leading financial services and in HR support group that actually provides financial services benefits and a personal prosperity assistant for every employee to check in every month. Bob Randall, he's CEO of Transcend Engagement. Transcend Engagement is a leading incentive company that specializes in looking at professional development, at looking at engagement across all elements of motivation, not just rewards, but actually the relationships between managers and employees. Matt Gregory, he's Assistant Vice President for Lockton, and many of you may know Lockton by being a customer of them. I think they're one of the world's largest, or certainly one of the US's largest insurance brokerage companies, and they're very much involved with HR and benefits, and we'll learn more about that from Matt. And finally, Darwin Hanson, he's an expert in compensation. He's been an advocate for total rewards for years, and I think as he'll explain, we have a long way to go. So just one little word for our sponsors. The EEA has multiple sponsors who help us get all of this great information out into the marketplace. So I'm now going to stop the share and let's get to work. So I'm going to start today with Darwin, giving us a perspective from your point of view in compensation. To what extent do you think companies today are looking at benefits, rewards, and compensation holistically?
Well, I think that they want to really bad, but they really haven't yet. They seem to be still under this idea that compensation is the only tool that we can use to engage employees. And really what we need to do is we need to look at a holistic approach of total rewards, to look at all the aspects of total rewards and include benefits in that, so that we can get some kind of an understanding of what the whole picture looks like and how we're going to engage the employees. Because really the employees' engagement is the aspect that we're trying to solve in this process.
So from your standpoint, Matt, Lockton does business with tens of thousands of companies. How strategic do you believe most companies are in terms of really taking a total reward strategy, benefits, rewards, incentives, and looking at it holistically?
Much more solid in the past. I would say a majority of our conversations are now veering towards the total rewards concept. Where are we? How do we get there? The overarching question I think a lot of employers are trying to answer is, how do I maximize my benefit spend, maximize my ROI across the total rewards category? Benefits, compensation, perquisites, you name it. How do I get the most bang for my buck? And so I think we're seeing a shift in that topic being elevated. And I think a majority of companies will be evaluating that going forward.
Bob, you've been in the incentive and recognition business now for about 8 years, I believe, and you're a professor as well in this whole space. what progress do you see in terms of, I think, the way Matt puts it is probably accurate, and Darwin, we're probably, to use a baseball analogy, maybe at the top of the second inning at best. What do you see, Bob, in terms of really understanding, stepping back and looking at rewards from a strategic, holistic point of view, rather than ad hoc, bright, shiny objects?
Yeah, that's a great question. I kind of feel like we're between innings. So I feel like this pandemic still has people a little bit in firefighting mode. And so there's that ad hoc mentality of like, let's just get people paid, let's get their benefits done, let's get something out there. But now with the worker shortage occurring, I think people are now being forced to think bigger picture and more strategically about how that whole employee experience really looks for everybody. And I think that's very encouraging, and hopefully all of us through the EEA and other means can help our clients with those discussions and think about that holistically.
So Maggie, as you may know, and others may know, the Securities and Exchange Commission is right now in the process of creating new regulations, which are almost definitely going to come to pass because the current chairman is gung-ho on workforce metrics disclosures. He has specifically stated he wants to see metrics, not just nice talk. Do you think yet that it's gotten to HR, to human resources, that we are moving from a nice, warm and fuzzy to a need to have, that for reasons Bob said, we can no longer look at employees as bright, shiny objects themselves because there's a major labor shortage that doesn't appear like it's going to go away just when benefits, the extended government benefits are going away. It looks like there are other reasons at work as well. What do you see about this moving from a nice to have to a need to have?
As a 25-year practitioner of HR in my past, I see it as being extremely important. There's always been ROI. One of your largest expenses is your employees, your employee benefits, and your offerings for them. Making sure they understand them and utilize each of them effectively needs to be important. It always has been. I don't think it's been measured as readily as it should be. But I think that just like if somebody wins an award, using that bright, shiny object analogy, they're temporarily, at least, their belief in their company and in themselves is really enhanced. Utilizing benefits and sharpening their effectiveness will further the understanding of someone's overall compensation package. And I think it benefits the company and the employee alike.
And so, Maggie, you're at the Missy, I'm sorry. Thank you, Maggie. Missy, you're at the front lines of this from the standpoint of dealing with companies that are right now assessing, making the benefits decisions. And by the way, we are going into benefits planning season, I think. Aren't we? How do you see, are companies beginning to pay more attention? Yeah, gee, what can we do to create a better life for our employees? And what are the types of questions they're asking you?
Yeah, so definitely have seen that a huge uptick this year on that. And some of the questions they're asking me is, how valuable could this be? Could we utilize this to extend it beyond just what the normal perks and discounts program has historically been, which has been, here's your login, get access to your discounts. Now they're actually reaching out and saying, can we provide this to spouses, significant others, retirees, interns, anyone that would put money back in their pocket? They don't have the ability to, a lot of these folks don't have the ability to go out and get these mass level discounts, right? They just don't have that type of buying power to be able to do that. Not anything that's significant. So they're really leaning on companies like Abenity to be able to realize those type of true values to where they don't have to give everybody a raise, right? They can provide these different discounts and it would be much larger than any raise that they could ever provide them, but it's almost like an end cap to everything, as well as using our program to promote additional partners that they have and things of that nature, celebrating their brand, getting brand recognition. That's another really big one, right? Is getting their brand out in their members' hands on off hours. For example, a branded ticket, right? So we're starting to see where they want that extra exposure, as well as the added benefit to the employee and their families.
And, I'm going to stick with that theme by going back to Maggie for a moment. Maggie, what type of changes do you see? In fact, I'm going to go back to you, Missy, and let you answer that as well. And then we're going to go back and talk a little bit more high level again. What type of, do you see any increased desire of companies to address financial, mental health, psychological issues that have come out of the pandemic? Are you seeing that from your clients? And then, Missy, I'm going to get back to you on that, and then we'll circle on to the others.
I absolutely do. I'm seeing a large correlation between financial stress and mental health. Financial progress needs to be accessible to everyone, and 73% of Americans rank finances as their number one concern. So that needs to correlate to the workplace and what companies are willing to address. We find that people are much healthier mentally, so there's less absenteeism, they're more present in their job. Right now, there's a 15.6% annual productivity impact, lost productivity because people are stressed about money, and that impacts their health. So the more companies can address that, not only does it benefit the company by higher productivity of their employees, but especially in a time when we have employment shortages, having more loyal, happy employees that feel like they're part of a community that really wants to take care of them is more and more important.
And Missy, how are you seeing this translate into the types of services? Traditional employee benefits programs, to my knowledge, have been discounts on merchandise or travel or tickets or special offers. How is that changing now as we look at the whole employee?
Really a lot of employers, like Maggie was mentioning, there's a big mental health concern, right? So there is an employee shortage, but think about the employees that are still there, right? Concerned about burnout, concerned about overworking these folks while they don't have enough employees to fill those seats. Everybody's having to do a little bit more. So we're really seeing them utilize this type of thing as, hey, you've been great for us, take these discounts, go do something fun with your family, trying to encourage that employee and give them the tools to be able to kind of get back to a more stable mental health mentality, right? So that they can focus on those things. So we're seeing a lot of different types of usage there from that aspect, as well as wanting to make sure that they do have financial capability. Because, you think about when COVID was here, I had a number of employees that their employees can't show up to work because they don't have daycare, because this one's out of work. Now they can't afford daycare, right? So we're actually changing our minds a little bit and starting to get more of those types of offers to support that type of need, right, that our employers have, as well as business to business level offers is something that's becoming extremely important. And that's something that Abenity has leaned into. A lot of these employers, they need the extra financial assistance from a company perspective as well to be able to provide some of these tools to their employees, right? So I think that you're starting to see that type of shift happen as well, very, very predominantly.
So, Matt, it's a little surprising to hear of an insurance brokerage company on this show talking about benefits and total rewards. Can you explain why an insurance company of your magnitude is involved in this space, and what is your involvement with benefits and rewards?
Yeah, happy to. I'm actually hot off the heels of the Tennessee State SHRM event this week, and many of the breakout sessions I attended had HR leaders as panelists. I love the panelist discussions. And the vast majority of them said, hey, a competitive core benefits plan is just table stakes now. If we're going to recruit the workforce of the future, retain top talent, be an employer of choice, we've got to expand this offering to reach out to what our recruits and our current employees really want and value. And what data and surveys show is that on this side of COVID, what employees value or perceive as valuable, what satisfies them, what they desire from a benefits and reward standpoint is very different from what it was 18 months ago. So whereas we were spending a lot of our time on those core benefits, those core programs, we've really evolved into a total rewards practice. So everything that touches an employee, can we bring you best practices, trends, benchmarks, help you put together a package that makes you a workforce of choice. And so we're spending a lot of time in that area. So that's how the insurance brokers got into this total reward space.
So you're actually offering benefits and employee recognition types of products, or what types of products are you offering now?
Yep. So our biggest value is consulting. And so we intentionally remain vendor neutral, vendor objective. We go out and find best in class to fit a particular employer's situation, their culture, their philosophy, what they're trying to achieve, whether that's in the benefit space, the talent and culture space, the DEI space, the well-being space. So we've seen wellness, that was a question raised earlier, really go from tobacco, non-tobacco incentives to let's integrate physical, financial, and mental wellness. And by the way, mental wellness is a huge recruiting tool right now. That's almost the number one thing that recruits are asking for. Missy mentioned the burnout factor. There's burnout, taking care of aging parents. We got kids on Zoom running around in the background. So it's a real thing. We're seeing a lot of folks say, hey, that's a big recruiting tool. What do we have in that category? Can it be telephonic and so forth? So long answer, but we've really gone beyond just the core into really total rewards.
And this is really surprising from the standpoint, Bob, from the incentive and recognition business where you come from. It must almost be surprising to hear a leading insurance company actually talking these solutions to their clients when many in your space aren't, right? Most of the incentive and recognition companies aren't even thinking about total rewards. Now, the reason I invited you on this panel is that Transcend, by your very name, it seems, and you didn't come out of the incentive industry, you came out of it from an academic and business standpoint. You had a background in general business management. Why do you think that so many incentive and recognition companies are ignoring total rewards? And how are you thinking about total rewards for your solutions?
Yeah, well, each of those incentive companies have their own cultures. And if they all started in a certain way, it's hard to break out of those mental models. And so I think coming at this with a completely fresh new perspective to meet the moment is going to be really, really important. So I'm really happy to hear what Lockton's doing and what the other panelists are doing in this space to help clients think about this in a whole new way, because I think we would all agree we have to stop thinking about employees as an expense and think about the opportunity as they can be really fully engaged in what they're doing is really where the big win will be.
And obviously, as we've already heard from the other panelists, a total reward strategy that's strategic is far more effective than, oh, well, we have a ping pong table in the lunchroom, or gee, you can take Fridays off in the Saturday, on the weekends, or in the summers. It's really more about having a strategic story. Darwin, I know that, knowing you as a compensation expert, you get called in, to address key needs. So when companies call you in, you're in the curious situation where they're in a need mode. They might have a compliance issue. They might have a regulatory issue of some kind, or another or they've grown quickly and they realize they're running into trouble. How do we get the compensation people to broaden their thinking to address the issues that Missy and Maggie and Matt have talked about?
Well, one of the things that happens is in compensation is, right, with a shortage of labor, everybody thinks, okay, what we're going to do is we have to increase our compensation. We have to do that. That's going to get people engaged. That's going to keep them here. And they find it doesn't work because that's only one component. And that's one piece of it. I think statistics that I'd like to throw out is 57% of organizations don't understand their total rewards offerings. 57%. How are you going to create an effective strategy when you don't understand it? And so that's really what I get called in to help people, as they say, hey, I've heard about this. DE&I is huge right now in our space. How do we handle that? How do we work with that? How do we work with the payroll systems are starting to come out with employee directed payroll. How do we do that? How do we handle that? What are we going to look for with that? And so what I have to do as a consultant is come back to them and say, hey, listen, we need to have a strategic approach to all of total rewards. We're not looking at one particular silo. We're not looking at benefits by itself. We're not looking at comp by itself. We're not looking at employee engagement by itself. It's all part of the same picture. And what we need to do is we need to have a coalesced version of this that everybody can attest to. And it goes out to all of the functions of the organization. So we bring in operations, we bring in the CFO, we bring the CHRO in to work with all of those pieces and put them together into a consistent plan.
And Matt, from your standpoint, and again, I know you always want to be cautious. No one wants to ever insult clients. But in terms of getting clients to really step back, I think it's well known that in HR, companies really have trended to just grab at bright, shiny objects. Are you seeing more human capital metrics coming into play? Are you seeing more discussion of, well, how are we measuring this? How does this align to our corporate purpose? Do we even really need this right now? Or should we be doing that? My hypothesis, tell me if I'm wrong, that as a result of the pandemic, the new focus on human capital management, there are going to be a lot of reset buttons going on. There are going to be a lot more questions asked of HR. What are we doing? Why have we been doing it? But am I drinking my own wine? Matt, am I wrong?
You are spot on. Even pre-pandemic, again, kind of on that consulting employee benefit side of things, there was rarely a meeting that the CFO, the controller, somebody in finance was not a part of. Hey, what is going on? As Maggie mentioned, it's a significant cost in general. So what are we measuring? What are the metrics? I love hearing Darwin say, just enhancing that strategic nature of the conversation. That's a big part of what we're trying to do as well, helping HR think strategically. So what should we be measuring? What can we measure? There's so many, there's a list of hard and soft ROI, and your things that can be impacted include utilization, retention, recruitment, engagement, the impact to healthcare cost, healthcare trends, absenteeism, presenteeism, morale. There's just so many things that we can quantify with a strategic approach to benefits and total rewards. And Darwin says we're throwing out some stats. One I came across this morning that I think fits really well for this conversation. This is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The average employer spends $11.38 per hour per employee on employee benefits. It gets better. SHRM now states the average utilization for benefits is below 10%. So we have a very high cost, very low utilization and appreciation. How do we address that gap? So your comment is spot on. You're not drinking the Kool-Aid. We're there with you. We all need to help kind of elevate that strategic nature of these conversations.
Now, Maggie, you have a really interesting service that ties right into what Matt is talking about. And as you know, I'm a huge advocate of this. It's your personal prosperity assistant concept. And for those of you who obviously aren't aware of it, it's the idea of having a professional HR person having a 15-minute scheduled call every month with an employee to check in on them. How are they doing? What's going on? And helping them set up a financial plan to address something if mom's sick or a child is ill, et cetera, et cetera. Maggie, what have you learned from these check-in sessions about the awareness of employees of the benefits? And what is the impact of checking in on an employee every month based on what you've learned so far in your business?
Thanks, Bruce. It's been very impactful. And one thing is we meet with them a half hour. It's a scheduled time. We're looking at revising that to 45 minutes because it's been so impactful. And just think of it from the HR standpoint of having someone who knows your benefits, advocates for your benefits, your 401k, as we do, as well as ancillary benefits available outside of that. But I've had employees who, they didn't know that their routine exams, their annual wellness exams were fully covered. They didn't know that they could see the dentist twice a year, that they were already, in most cases, paying for that with their insurance. And they're like, My dentist keeps calling. I didn't know I should make an appointment. I'm helping one family right now where their son was born without an ear, and they are doing cosmetic surgery so this young 5-year-old sweet boy can look like all the other kids when he starts school, helping them to navigate which of their insurances are best. It's out of network coverage. We've spent a good 6 months, or we will have spent a good 6 months, helping them walk through what the process should look like. So when they go for that insurance, not only do they have HSA dollars set aside to help with that expense, but they've maneuvered through and efficiently utilized their insurance so that coverage is in place for the reason it was intended. Employers want to take care of their employees, as does HR staff. But in many smaller companies, HR people wear so many hats that really having a good understanding of their benefit offerings is difficult. We partner with their HR staff, we partner with their insurance brokers to make both their medical, dental, vision coverage well known, as well as their 401k plans and any of their other offerings. So having access to someone every single month, you're staying on top of where they are in their life and where they need assistance. And we always use their employee benefits first. So we're seeing much higher utilization and understanding of those coverages.
So I believe that your colleague Jervis actually shared some statistics with me with one of the clients showing, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but that showed a marked increase in the use of benefits by those who had been spoken to. I mean, as if that really is surprising, but could you confirm, did I understand that properly?
And I can't tell you the exact percentage, but I can absolutely tell you that it's been a significant increase. We each work with 30, 40 groups of people. And just my own experience with those employees is, of the group that I work with, at least 60%, if not 70% of them have higher utilization and understanding of their coverages and why it's important to get your eyes checked for the rest of your body, why it's important to have good oral hygiene, because that impacts the rest of your body. When people are in a place that they're worried about their finances, 60% of them skip routine visits. We help them to understand why it is really beneficial for them to do so, and that there isn't a cost for them taking care of themselves and their families.
That's great. So, Missy, tell us, again, one of the purposes of this show, and I'm going to be sharing it with as many people as we can beyond our media, just directly, because I think more companies like Bob's and Matt's and Darwin's should be out there bringing a holistic approach. But again, everybody has to make money. Is there a way for a company like Bob or Matt or Darwin, if they're bringing your services, is this something that they have to charge their clients for, or is there some sort of margin? And that will apply to you too, Maggie, as well. Is there some way that they can bring this to their client like any other solution and get some sort of margin for doing so?
Absolutely, of course. Yeah. So we partner with a lot of folks. I mean, really, whenever you're able to come in, like everybody's been talking about, right? A holistic approach, coming into where you're filling all of the different needs that an employer has, that's when it works out best, right? I mean, we've all heard multiple panelists say, and I was actually at the same SHRM conference with Matt just yesterday, and really coming together. And if me, Bob, and Matt are working together with a client, I can say, listen, I know technology, they have a lot of millennials or Gen X as a part of their group. They need technology, right? So, that's one thing I've heard from them. So you work together as a team to provide this solution that's tailored particularly to that client and to that client's employees, right? So the employees are getting the most out of it, the employer's getting the most out of it, and us working together, there's a benefit, a rev share, if you will, right? To doing that, right? For all involved. So it's coming in as such a holistic approach like that is a win for everyone involved. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. So Bob and Matt and Darwin, I'm going to address these questions to you because you're more from the perspective now of the end client. Um, Again, what I don't think most people know, Reuters had an article about it today that will go out in all the media, that the Securities and Exchange Commission, as I said earlier, within probably 2 years, is going to require specific metrics disclosures. Metrics. If people don't like vaccines, I'm telling you, businesses are not going to like this. They are going to have to do, and it's quite clear that Gensler, that is Chairman Gary Gensler of the SEC, has the votes to enforce disclosure. It's called rules-based disclosure of employee engagement and turnover, pay and benefits, professional development, wealth and wellness and safety and diversity, and that includes of the board. Imagine that. Metrics disclosures, which means they're comparable from year to year. Now I want to make one other thing. A lot of people think that SEC rules only apply to public companies. No, public companies require their supply chains generally to comply with the same rules that they have to comply with if it's a larger company, not a small little consultancy. Secondly, private equity companies, and there are over 10,000 private equity companies in the US, they too generally follow SEC disclosure rules because they're private investors. Their money is just as public as public money. In other words, it's money. So I'm going to ask you three gentlemen this question. A, do you think that most CEOs are yet aware of this? And B, is this something, don't you have to prepare for when you have to publish metrics, Bob? You can't wait until the day you have to publish metrics. You'd better have prepared for it. Two questions, and I'll unpack it. Do you think CEOs know it? And do you think they're ready?
I would say no and no. But the good news is that what gets measured gets done. And so they might be dragging and kicking to show those measurements, but there's a good reason why the SEC is doing this. And that's because employee engagement, worker satisfaction is a leading indicator of performance. And if you're investing in a company, which the SEC is looking out for investors, of course, you want to know what's the future prospect of this company look like. And that's a leading indicator of the share price and the performance of the company. So there's good reason why it's being done.
Matt, what's your viewpoint? Do you think CEOs know? Do you think your clients know this yet or understand the implications of having to report methodologies and metrics?
I agree with what Bob mentioned. What gets measured gets done. I also agree with his earlier comment about companies are just still swamped putting out COVID fires right now. It's a never-ending battle with them. So I do agree with him that if they're aware of it, it's not a high priority yet. There's no planning going on. So from a metric standpoint, an increased fiduciary standpoint, an increased transparency standpoint, there are very significant items that employers are going to be held accountable for. My fear is that many will just get, get done. COVID will get somewhat under control, and all of a sudden it'll be the end of the year, and they got to run and take care of this. So we are beginning to educate. We're also watching the different agencies that are suing to prevent some of these from going into place. But the short answer is to Bob's point, no and no. It's not greatly aware yet, and it is not a priority yet.
So Darwin, we do have a little history here because under the Trump administration, Secretary, I should say, SEC Chair Jay Clayton, he was the first to put through what are called materiality-based disclosures. And those turned out to be very vague. Companies can literally say whatever they want. But I still give him credit and the Trump administration credit for raising this issue, and I think that credit should be shared. But the feeling of Gensler is that and I think it's been proven right, that just publishing nice little statements is meaningless. And so companies didn't have to prepare. In other words, they knew this was coming, but they knew they weren't going to have to say anything. So it was a quick thing, Matt, for them to pull in the lawyers and say, hey, publish, we need a little press release here for our 10K. Darwin, isn't it different when you have to publish metrics and you have to explain what your metrics are and you have to compare them? You can't go humming at the last minute when it comes to publishing metrics, can you?
No, and it's very interesting because you're right. The materiality was a matter of perspective. Is this material to your company? Maybe. Is it material for somebody else to know that? I don't know, maybe. So you could create some statements, and you could actually go on the web and find a statement and paste it into your filing. And it really wasn't the greatest way to do it. But you're right. I do give them credit for at least starting that conversation and beginning. It has to begin somewhere. And that was a good place to begin. But the metrics are going to allow us to have some consistency, some standardizations, and then ability to measure across that, across year to year, to see how companies are doing, how one company is doing next to another. What are the actual drivers that are driving the company to succeed? And that's what the SEC, like Bob said, that's what they're all about. What are those metrics that are being driven? So, I think that's a good point. The other point I think that overlays this is generally the CFO is the one that produces the documents for the SEC. All of this is going to require the CHRO to be involved. This is not something they're used to. Metrics to them are turnover, just flat out, plain and simple turnover. They don't know why. They don't know what it's used for. They don't know if having increased turnover or decreased turnover is good or bad. That there's no concept of what that means. They're not used to that. Now they're going to be in a spot where they're going to have to provide an extensive amount of metrics that are going to need to be understood and going to need to be documented in several different ways. So they're going to be in a position where they're going to have to do this in a very, very short period of time, because like Matt and Bob said, they're going to wait until the last moment, and then they're going to try to force this stuff out. And it's just not going to happen. So they need to be proactive about this. They need to start thinking about it right now. They need to be able to understand what data that they need to pull, how they need to pull it, and what they need to use to explain that data. So if they wait until the last moment, they're not going to be able to produce it, and they're going to be late in their filings, and all the fines and things that come along with that.
Well, and then there's the issue of comparability. When you're publishing metrics, the metrics are comparable.
Yes.
And so if you don't know what your metrics are, and you wait until the last minute to find out what they are, you could have some very unpleasant surprises in your first 10K filing. Missy, can you, going down to the brass tacks, can you give us a sense of what types of benefits a company like Abenity provides? Just being specific, different types of benefits, employee discounts. Just rattle off some things that a company could offer their employees to make life more fun.
Yeah, so it's everything from wholesale tickets to every theme park that you can imagine, movie theaters, things of that nature. Buy one, get one free for dinners, groceries, oil changes, on up to things like buying a car, refinancing their homes. So really, it's a span of offerings that are available for any stage of life that someone's in, from basic everyday needs on up to bigger, more infrequent level needs, right? So that's kind of what they're looking at and producing it in a way. And this is kind of the biggest thing I wanted to share with everybody. I always talk to every client that I talk to, hey, what's the most important thing to you? Simplicity, transparency, the trueness of the offers, and the technology behind what I'm offering, because it has to be at the speed of technology that these folks are used to, right? So we provide all of those type of things in a multitude of different types, used different devices and things of that nature. But really, it's those types of benefits that we're seeing them use again and again, right? Every day, from everyday living type options on up. To those one-time use offers, or if you're buying a house every week, you can do that too, right? So there's no limit on the offers.
Do you have any idea of what the most popular types of benefits are, the ones that are most used?
Local discounts. So if we're looking at local versus national versus regional, local discounts win out every time. We do allow our members. So if you are an employer, you can allow your actual employees to recommend offers to us. And what we're seeing more than anything is them trying to support the local businesses in their communities. So we see a lot of that type of use, of that type of favorability toward those items. But if I was to break it down by the types of offers, I would say that we're in summer, so it's travel, amusement parks. People are ready to get out, right? They want to get their families out. They want to go do something fun. They are so ready to either be out of their home office with their children, right? Or being out of the office in general, or being able to do something with their families that, they hadn't been able to do prior. So those are the popular ones right now is travel, entertainment parks, and restaurants is always going to be up there. Everybody likes their dinner. So
And Maggie, from your standpoint, you folks focus more on financial insecurity. So are you seeing more, I'm seeing in the media throughout a lot of concern about financial insecurity. Do you see a lot of growth in that area, Maggie, in terms of general financial, mental health security, those types of things?
Well, certainly, Bruce, from the folks that we meet with and help, they're getting their finances in order. They're learning how to budget. They're learning where their money goes. They're the ones who set the goals for how we're going to move forward. But from an employer perspective, we're getting more and more employers who really see the relevance and correlation between happy and healthy employees and the company's productivity. So there's a much higher level of concern for making sure that people have healthy finances. There aren't a lot of places to learn that. And most people think that you need to have a lot of money to have a financial advisor. Making this available to everyone is really impactful.
So wrapping up with the last three questions here, Bob, from your standpoint, as an incentive and recognition company that's had much more professional development, do you anticipate putting, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but do you anticipate putting a total reward strategy into your overall product mix?
I think we kind of organically have started that process. So we're finding more of our clients. We identified that there's a need there, and if we can help lead them to those types of discussions, I think there's a great opportunity. But I like what Missy had said earlier. I think it's not just like one person going in. It has to be like a team effort. And so I love the connections that you're making with all of us here today, Bruce, because I think that's important as well.
Well, thank you. And Matt, from your perspective, where, again, using that baseball analogy, where do you see us in the baseball game in terms of really moving to the full promise of total rewards, where the CEO, the entire management team, really has a clear sense of the purpose of the organization and is strategically focused on creating a holistic approach to retain employees in a measurable way? Where are we in that moving from employees as an expense to employees as an opportunity game?
It's hard to say which part of the base path we're on. I really think I keep going back to COVID, but COVID really accelerated a lot of this conversation. Employers fell into one of three buckets. They were disadvantaged by COVID, they were neutral, or they were advantaged. And so everybody's really focused on that benefit spend, that human capital, spend right now. And as they fight the recruitment battle, the retention battle, they're going to have to round second base really quickly if they want to compete in the marketplace, and really sort of holistically look at the things that the ProsperBridge, that Abenity, compensation experts, talent experts bring to the table, and begin to get that expertise involved with their teams, and their teams internally are going to have to get the same table much more frequently. We just can't have comp silos, retirement silos, and benefit silos anymore, and it be an effective strategy, 2, 3, 5 years down the road. It's just not going to happen. So they're going to have to see that third base coach waving them around really quickly if they want to excel going into the future.
Well, that was a great transition to Darwin. Thank you. All of you folks are great. You must do this all the time. Darwin, my question to you is, I know one of your pet peeves, and you're too nice, Minnesota nice to say it, but I think that's what you feel, that there's a lot of too many silos. Do you think companies are beginning to recognize what Matt has said, that we really have to get all hands on deck? We can't separate out compensation from rewards, from incentives. We really need to have a clear strategy. Do you see progress toward that? Because they're going to have to do that if they're going to be effective.
I see progress. Now, as you said, it's one of my pet peeves. So I would very much like to see progress happen a lot quicker. But, you know, progress is progress. So I see progress in that regard because they may not be looking at total rewards in my concept of total rewards, because my concept is total rewards. And they look at it and they say, oh, well, let's, you know, comp and benefits, let's put that together and decide what to do with that strategically. It's like, well, okay, those are two aspects. Let's add the others to that as well. You know, let's talk about, you know, other aspects, you know, the career development aspect. Let's talk about that.
Mhm.
Let's bring that into the picture. And it's hard for them to think of all of those together because they're focused on the monetary part of it. And the non-monetary part of the employee reward system is not as focused in their heads about it. So I think it helps. One of the things I think really helped with that is unfortunately COVID, because it changed the employees' minds. Not only did that work on the employer, but it worked on the employee. The employee had a total different experience in the last year than they've had in their prior career. And their experience helped them to understand what they're really looking for out of their employment and what they can do with it. And this whole concept of some employees really liked the idea of working from home, but some didn't. Some hated it. I worked with somebody that called me on a regular basis because they were going crazy being at home. They're an extrovert and they couldn't actually think. They called me at times to explain something that I already knew, they already knew, but they had to say it out loud to somebody and they had nobody to talk to. So they had to call me to talk to somebody so they could actually think about what they were going to do in this process, which is great for them, but it's just impacted everybody differently. And I think it's helped for some to clarify, and some it's helped to confuse them on what their career path looks like. And what they needed to do is to get that change under their belt to kind of get them a feeling of where they're going to go from here. And I think that we have to overlay with the organization's concept of total rewards so that we can put those two components together and come up with a plan that actually works for everybody and all the stakeholders involved in the organization.
And the payoff for this, folks, is higher retention, lower recruitment costs, better experiences, higher customer satisfaction, more willingness to refer, fewer lawsuits. And I would conclude by saying that people management today is where quality manufacturing was in the 1980s. We tolerated high levels of defects. We built it into our business plan and we made money anyway. And then the Japanese taught us that wasn't going to work. Well, I think we're now in the same with people management. Most companies build high levels of turnover, high levels of dissatisfaction into their business models. And if they're hitting their numbers, they're fine. Well, guess what? Investors have woken up to that. They see value underneath all of that. And that's the opportunity that you folks all bring to the table. So thank you very much for your time today. I'm going to conclude with just a quick little final thank you to, again, our sponsors. And to let everybody also know that we have lots of free resources available at the EEA through our media properties. And again, I want to thank our speakers, Missy Dunn from Abenity, a leading benefits company, Bob Randall, CEO of Transcend Engagement, a top engagement company, Darwin Hanson, TMEvolution, a leading consulting and compensation and HR technology company, Matt Gregory of the a well-known Lockton insurance brokerage firm, and Maggie Drucker, thank you very much, from ProsperBridge, employee finance and HR support company. Thanks, everybody, and we look forward to seeing all of you again sometime.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.